Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I do want to speak about the big transfers that Barcelona could be making in the summer of 2024. There has been so many sources that are starting to claim that Barcelona, Joan Laporta, Deco, Xavi Hernandez, Rafa Yuste, all of these men working within the club are going to get ready to make one big transfer in that summer. Like they're willing to spend huge amounts of money to bring in a star player that can really bring Barcelona to the next level. Now, I don't know what Barcelona's real budget is going to be because, to be honest, them saying that they're willing to spend so much money in the summer, everybody's going to be having a different view. Like to me, it sounds like they're willing to spend 200 million euros in the summer to bring in one player. But to them, they could look at it in their own perspective and say, we're going to be spending 70 million euros in the summer. So everybody's going to be having different points of views on what they think spending big actually means. So as of now, we don't know how much Barcelona are willing to spend, but let's assume that Barcelona are going to be looking for a difference maker, a player that can excite fans and give us a solid 4 to 5 years. And let's also assume that Xavi Hernandez is still going to be the coach by that time, which is going to help us know exactly who Barcelona could be going for, because Xavi has been going for multiple players in the past year and a half that we have been talking about on this YouTube channel. So a lot of the players that I am going to be referencing, we have already talked about in the channel multiple times. And so to also give us a better idea on what type of profiles Barcelona will be looking for, all we have to do is check and see what are the problems that this club is encountering right now in this season. And there's two problems. Point number one is we do lack another world-class midfielder, and we also do lack a world-class attacker that can score a lot of goals. I don't necessarily think that Barcelona is going to be looking for a world-class center back because we have great center backs at the moment. We also have Mikhail Faye and Kubarsi coming from Barcelona Athletic, so we're already very saturated in that position. Same thing with the fullback positions. It's all covered by Cancelo, Jules Koundé, Araujo can also play in those positions, Alejandro Valdez also there. We also have Julian Araujo from Las Palmas who could be returning because of his recent form, which ultimately does lead to the midfield and the attack. Now look, let's talk about the midfield first before we talk about the attack. In the midfield, I think that Barcelona are going to be heavily depending on Frenkie, Gundogan, and Pedri for the rest of this season, because these are three players that do give you the control, they give you the creativity, they also give you that sense that they're really hard to shrug off when the opposition does have the ball. Frenkie, Gundogan, and Pedri really do know how to press when they are 110% in their fitness. And so Oriol Romeu and Fermin Lopez are going to have to be exceptional if they want to break through these three players that we have at the moment. And that is the problem, right? Is the fact that it's only going to be taking one player out of these three, which is Pedri, Gundogan, and Frenkie, to really unbalance this whole team. It only takes one player to get injured. And for the next year, from today's date, we're bound to get another new injury from one of these players. And I don't want that from the players, but it's just something that's part of football. It's just part of this sport. Eventually, one of these players will get injured, and it could be maybe 2 weeks or maybe worst case scenario 2 months, but we're bound to get a brand new injury in the middle of the pitch. And the fact that our only options is Oriol Romeu and Fermin Lopez, I just feel like Barcelona do lack quality depth. Yes, I know that we still have Gavi, but in a position that does require 3 total world-class midfielders, you need at least 5 world-class midfielders at the very least. And so I think that Barcelona should be looking in that market and not look for those cheap midfielders that you see from either Las Palmas or from Girona or from Athletic Club. Barcelona cannot act in that way. They can't say, okay, let's go for that one player that we had at Barcelona about 10 years ago and we sold him to Chelsea or we sold him to Leeds or whatever, right? We need to look for a world-class midfielder. As for the attack, I'm just going to leave it at this, right? I'm going to give everybody a stat. Barcelona are the only team in the top 5 of La Liga who have underperformed in their expected goal rate so far. Barcelona have created the highest expected goal in the league so far, but are only in the 5th position in terms of the highest goal scorers, which means that they have created a lot, but they miss so many chances. So basically, this is a stat that is showing Barcelona were expected to score 30 goals by then at this point of the season, but they have only scored 28. You are regarded as a good team when you have an expected goal rate of, like, let's just say 10, but the actual goals that you do have in the season is 30, right? So that is considered something good. If you have an expected goal rate of, like, let's just say 10 and then you ended up scoring only 3, that's not good. So look at Girona. Girona have an expected goal rate of 28. They were only expected to score 28 goals by this point of the season, but they have scored 34 goals. They have exceeded their expectations. And so Barcelona are not doing well in terms of that. Yes, like we are in the top 3 of La Liga, but that is because of our great defense. So we have been unable to really find our footing in terms of the attack. Rafinha has not been so lucky. Lewandowski misses a lot. Lamine Yamal is only 16 years old. Ferran Torres barely does get used. And the only real safe player right now is Joao Felix that can score a lot of goals for us. Yes, I know that Vitor Roque is going to be arriving in about a month and a half, but Barcelona need another another attacker, I believe, that can for sure score us a lot of goals. Someone with high energy. Remember, quality depth is the most important thing at FC Barcelona, and Barcelona simply do not have that at the moment. We have great goal scorers, but we don't have multiple great goal scorers. So let's move on towards the options. Let's talk about let's go back into the midfield and talk about who could Barcelona sign that could be considered as a world-class midfield signing. And my list is going to be this: Zubimendi, Joshua Kimmich, and Florian Wirtz. In terms of who is the youngest, it is Wirtz. The one that is the most experienced, it is Joshua Kimmich. The one player that is easiest to adjust, it is Zubimendi. Zubimendi is already playing in La Liga and he's also Spanish, so he's going to be recognizing multiple players at Barcelona already. Now, as for Florian Wirtz, he is the most expensive one, I think, because Bayer Leverkusen do want to sell him at 130 million euros. 130. And so again, that is why it's very important to understand what does Barcelona mean by they're willing to spend a huge amount of money in the summer of 2024, because I don't know if they're meaning 70 million euros or 220 million euros. Regardless, Florian Wirtz is going to be a huge investment. 130 million euros is a lot. The last time we spent that much money was back in 2019 for, I think, Antoine Griezmann. But Florian Wirtz is a player that does have a lot of potential to score a lot of goals. He's very different to the other players that we have named here, like Zubimendi and Kimmich, because he's much more of a central midfielder. He is somebody that can find you goals, and that is something that Pedri is not so good at the moment. So Xavi Hernandez would be delighted to make such a signing. And I think that if you sign the player too, because he is a central midfielder, that would push Gundogan to play much more as a central defensive midfielder. And I think that it's also very exciting because in the future we could pair Noah Darvic, who's also German like Florian Wirtz, and pair them together to potentially form a attacking midfield duo. So now let's move on towards the other players, which is Zubimendi and Joshua Kimmich. These are two players who are much more similar to each other than when we compare Wirtz to Zubimendi and Kimmich. Zubimendi and Kimmich are much more compatible, I would say. And this would actually change the role of Gundogan, because with Kimmich and Zubimendi being much more comfortable as sixes, Gundogan would play as a central midfielder much more. Both players would also cost the same, maybe around 50 million to 60 million euros. And because a player like Zubimendi is so cheap and he's so young, Barcelona are going to be looking at a lot of competition. Bayern Munich are actually very interested in signing Zubimendi, and they're also willing to pay the total 60 million euros that Real Sociedad is asking for. And I don't know if this is a sign, but what if this is Bayern Munich saying, okay, we're ready for the departure of Joshua Kimmich because he's looking to go elsewhere, and that is why they want to get Zubimendi. And that is why, again, I'm bringing Kimmich into the conversation, because I feel like Bayern Munich are gearing up for that potential exit. And when you compare these two players, you can see that Kimmich is actually better in terms of defending. In terms of successful tackles per 90, Kimmich is superior. With blocks per 90, Kimmich is also superior. Now, we could also argue that Zubimendi is better in clearances, because in clearances per 90, Zubimendi is much better. In terms of headed clearances per 90, again, Zubimendi is much better. Now, if you look at the bottom of this list, when it comes to possession won in the final third per 90, Kimmich is superior. So I think that overall, Xavi Hernandez would be much more comfortable on signing Kimmich because of what he provides defensively. I think that he's a fan of both, but Kimmich would be much more ideal. I see two players that have two very different motives on why they would want to leave next summer. Kimmich is because he's looking for a new journey, and Zubimendi wants to take the next big step in his career and maybe for one day win the Champions League. And that is something that he cannot do at Real Sociedad. So in my honest opinion, I would go for Kimmich over Zubimendi. I think that for me, both don't matter. If Zubimendi comes, I'll be happy. If Kimmich comes, I'll still be happy. But if I were to choose, I would choose Kimmich because he's much more experienced and he wants the number 6 role so bad. And I can already see Kimmich being paired with Frankie. It's just something that I can dream of. And yes, I understand that maybe he is on the old side. He is 29 years old, or he will be 29 by the time he does join Barcelona next summer. But look, Gundogan has been performing at such an exceptional level at the age of 33 years old. I can see Kimmich coming here and giving us good, solid 5 years and be good until the age of 34 years old. 5 years is a lot of time and a lot of commitment to FC Barcelona. So based off the necessities of this club, I think that Kimmich would be my number 1 choice, Zubimendi my second choice, and then third choice, Florian Wirtz. So now lastly, I do want to move on towards the attack, and I'm going to make this one very quick because I don't think that there is a big market for the attacking options. And if Barcelona really wanted to move for a effective world-class attacker, they're going to have to spend more than 180 million euros. And I mean, like, they're probably going to have to look for Kylian Mbappe or like Erling Haaland if they really want to make a huge difference in the attack. But I'm just going to, again, assume that Barcelona's budget is going to be at around 110 to 120 million euros max, at the very max. So yes, I understand that Kylian Mbappe could be an option, but I just don't see it simply because he's just too expensive. Yes, I have said before that Barcelona are willing to invest heavily in the summer, but it's not going to reach the numbers of Kylian Mbappe. There's just no way. You also have to take into account his wages, even though I would love it and he would be a perfect perfect fit, I just don't see it happening. So these are going to be my options in terms of the attack. Rafael Leao from AC Milan, Bernardo Silva from Man City, and also Julian Alvarez from Manchester City. And to me, in my opinion, I think that Julian Alvarez should be the player that Barcelona should be going for, definitely, for sure. I like Leao, I like Bernardo Silva, but there are a couple of reasons on why I just don't think that Leao would come, and for Bernardo Silva, the same thing. For Leao is because I'm starting to hear reports in Italy that AC Milan are not willing to let go of Leao, and that Leao really does love AC Milan, and they want to commit to each other. I would love to see this player come because of his pace, because of his physical powerness, and because of the way that he does counterattack with the ball. Like, we are going to be seeing him do great things in the Champions League this season, but I just don't see it happening because of how committed they are to each other. As for Bernardo Silva, this is a player that Xavi Hernandez has been wanting since the day that he joined this club. He has been wanting Bernardo Silva, but I feel like the more that time does go by, the more I'm starting to see that Bernardo Silva may never come to the club because of his age. Now, he is 29 years old. I just talked about how Kimmich is also going to be 29 years old, but the difference is that Kimmich is coming here to play as a central defensive midfielder, a position that does not require a lot of pace and power and 1v1 ability. For Bernardo Silva, it's much different. And I think that if Barcelona want to sign a player that can give you 5 good years, Bernardo Silva doesn't seem like the ideal candidate. I think that he can give us 1 to 2 good years, maybe 3, but that's pushing it. And the more I see Bernardo Silva play under Pep Guardiola, I feel like he never wants to leave because he's becoming such an important player for the club. Like, I think that the best player that has been performing at City so far this season has been Silva. So his career is only upping and upping, and I don't see him trying to destroy that in the summer and remove that momentum. And that is why I do lead towards Julian Alvarez, because Julian Alvarez's situation at Man City is very interesting. It's very interesting because even though he has been in top form this season, you can just tell that Pep Guardiola has not been using Julian to his maximum potential. And the reason why I'm saying that is because Julian Alvarez is a definitive number 9, a great goal scorer, a player that can play in Erling Haaland's position easily. But this season, Julian Alvarez has been playing as a creative midfielder, almost acting like a number 8, and that is mainly because of Kevin De Bruyne's injury. And that is why Julian Alvarez has been in his position. But because Julian Alvarez is not that player that can be so reliable in terms of key passes, it does hurt Man City. And the fans, the coaches, the players do know that. Like, Julian Alvarez is a fantastic player, but he's not a midfielder. City have always been looking stronger when either only Julian Alvarez or only Erling Haaland does start in the number 9 position. The best team that City could assemble at the moment is for Silva and Foden to play in the interior roles as attacking midfielders, with Doku and Grealish on the flanks, and then having either Phillips with Rodri or Kovacic with Rodri in the central defensive midfield roles. Usually when you have Julian Alvarez in those interior roles, they become much more unbalanced. As a matter of fact, in one of the goals that Man City have conceded, it was because of Julian Alvarez losing the ball in the middle of the pitch. And so I think that at some point Alvarez is going to get fed up, even though I know that he's not saying nothing and he's going to continue to work hard under Pep Guardiola. I think that once the summer does hit, he's going to be looking for a move out, because I think that his best abilities do come as a number 9. And so if we can bring in Julian Alvarez to Barcelona, we can definitely put him in positions as the number 9. Now you may say, but Kevin, we have Vitor Roque. I think that Vitor Roque is going to be seen multiple positions. I think he will be playing on the wings sometimes while having Julian Alvarez as a number 9. He's also someone who can press very well and force mistakes from you. And that is the perfect profile for Xavi Hernandez, which is why I do think that Julian Alvarez is an ideal candidate for not just Xavi Hernandez, but for Barcelona in general. He has the football DNA of Barcelona, which is so fascinating to me. Because again, as of now, he is being used incorrectly, because positionally, he's not so disciplined. And you have to be extremely disciplined when you are a number 8. You just have to. So again, I'm not trying to say that Alvarez has been bad. He has had multiple fantastic performances, like against Fulham, West Ham, Wolves, but man, are you missing much more from him when you're not playing him as a number 9. And Julian Alvarez will eventually see that and come to that conclusion. And so that is it. That is going to be wrapping up today's video. I hope you guys did like this video. Let me know who you guys do think that Barcelona could be signing in 7 months. It's going to be very interesting. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.